Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Electric Oofaloos podcast. My name is Duran Barron, alongside, as always,
Dominique, waving, but you can't see that, so sorry.
Joseph, remembering not to wave this time.
It's me, your boy. It's David.
It's your boy. So, this is our first episode of what we hope to be a quite a long-running podcast of just our kind of general nerdy news, movie reviews, game reviews, and just us talking about all things nerdy and lovable. And we're excited to be doing this. And today we're going to go ahead and jump right into one of the most recent movies that we've watched and that we'd like to talk about. And we're considering this a PSA announcement rather than an actual review. This is more of a warning to you and your children.
About the furry
not the
fan
podcast.
fiction.
Watch the podcast.
Listen
to the podcast.
But today we are talking about the infamous movie, Howard the Duck.
The best thing George Lucas has ever put out, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, way better than Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
It's my favorite furry
what's
fan
Indiana
fiction.
Jones?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So, let's continue on from that blasphemy. So, what are you guys' general thoughts? We watched it this past Monday, so it's still fresh in our minds.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
It hasn't left me. Howard's my sleep paralysis demon now.
Howard. No. Okay. So, what are you guys' general thoughts?
No, I take it back. The play duck is my sleep paralysis demon now.
It is legitimately a furry fanfic that somehow got a movie.
Honestly, Leah Thompson's cute, but
As always.
as always,
David, what about you?
I mean, what's there to say? It sucked.
The duck sucks.
concise.
I think that about sums it up right there. But here's an interesting question. Howard the Duck is one of the most infamous movies throughout all history. For good reason. It is considered one of the worst movies of all time.
For good reason.
For a good reason. Is there anything good that we can say? Is there any kind of praise that before we start tearing into it, before we tear it apart, what is there good to say about this movie?
Leah Thompson.
Leah Thompson.
And
There's
the music.
one.
I like the music. Not the score, but like the songs. They weren't good per se, but I liked them.
I may add that the visual effects were, not the
Awful.
worst thing.
Yeah. That's true.
And we'll get more into this stuff later on in our conversation. But Dominique, you brought up Leah Thompson, who is the lead actress. As you know, she's a very decent actress. How about the acting as a general in this movie? What kind of thoughts do we have on that?
I liked Phil.
Phil.
I'll admit, given the parts that I think they were trying to play, they all acted very well.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that they were given those parts to play, though. That's the problem here.
So real quick, as kind of a background to this, because hopefully many of you haven't seen this.
And we're not advising you.
We're not advising you to. So we'll, before we get too far, let's go ahead and give kind of a rundown of the movie. The movie
that's his last name.
is about Howard, who lives in a alternate dimension, like an alien different planet, where everyone acts like humans, but they're all anthropomorphic ducks.
Can I add that Howard the Duck's name is actually Howard T. Duck? I think it's just.
I think that is important.
It's important to know that.
It really is.
And a failed science experiment on Earth conducted by none other than the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
And Winona Ryder's dad.
Brings Howard the Duck into the planet Earth, and he tries to adjust and return to his planet as best as he can alongside Leah Thompson. So that's kind of the background. That's what these actors were given. And so I have to agree that with what the actors were given, they did as well as I suppose they could.
Before you go asking about like a scientific explanation as to how this happened, how a duck is instantaneously transported across space and time through a science experiment, don't worry. The movie offers absolutely no explanation except for science.
It's science.
It's science.
Science rules.
What are you talking about? It tells you at the very like.
It shows you
Yeah.
the machine. You can make it yourself
It's a
at
whole
home.
like
there's a
special
DIY
link.
kit.
Yeah.
So, furthermore, I would like to bring up on the Howard the Duck official IMDb page. You bring it up because I'm pulling it up here so I can actually look at some of the actors' names. You pull it up, and I'm not even kidding you. The picture on the front is a scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
What?
I'm not even kidding
That's
you.
Back to the Future.
It's-
What are you talking about?
No, I'm so sorry. Back to the Future. Yeah. From Back to the Future with Leah Thompson.
Both are excellent films. Highly recommend.
Highly
Watch those
recommend.
and don't watch those.
And don't watch those. So, what did you guys think of Jeffrey Jones, who you guys might know as the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, as kind of the antagonist of this film?
I liked him.
He-
He was good.
He was probably the best actor in the movie.
I
I'd say.
agree.
He played his part extremely well.
Oh yeah.
And his part was the scientist who did indeed get infected or something like.
Or something. We've watched this movie and that's the best we can come up with. Trust us.
Yeah,
From what I can tell, a space parasite that was also pulled from its planet by the same method that Howard the Duck
Yeah.
came to this Earth was pulled directly into this guy's head to take over him and eventually take over Earth.
Yup.
That begs the question: was Howard the Duck pulled into an actual duck, and everything was kind of shot through his perspective as a duck?
His whole life was just made up.
Yeah.
Like his all.
You're right. It never does show him looking in a mirror.
Whew.
It does never. You're right. It doesn't ever show.
Just
Howard
like the
the
action
Duck.
movies, a fever dream. Howard the Duck is also living a fever dream. 100%.
Man.
10 out
I
of
mean,
10.
watching it, I
writing.
hope it was a fever dream. Jeez.
We
I
can
hope it wasn't
only
someone's fever
hope.
dream. I don't want to meet this guy who had a fever dream like this.
So, we're talking about this, and this brings us into the next big point I'd like to talk about, which is the script, the actual writing, or should I say, lack thereof. It's okay, Dominique. It's okay. What kind of critiques, what kind of criticisms could we give to the writers of Howard the Duck?
Don't write this movie. Not everything
I mean,
needs to
they
be a
did
duck
something
pun.
right. I don't know much about movies, but it says here that they won a Razzie Award for worst screenplay,
Worst screenplay.
and the Razzie Award for worst picture of the decade. So
Wow.
they're
Howard
doing
the Duck.
something.
It was
Whew.
the worst picture of the 80s. And think of some of the other movies that came out in the 80s, including Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan the Barbarian.
Did Xanadu come out in the 80s or was that the 70s?
You were talking about this was the first of the comics to come out as a movie.
Oh yeah, this
Yeah.
is like the first Marvel Comics movie since like the cereals, and not like the food cereal. Maybe the food cereal. I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I'm not a marine biologist. But yeah, and
Since
there's
the
a reason we
40s.
didn't get a Blade until '97, and I think that's why.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
No, me neither.
So whenever you're talking about how big of a fan you are of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, please note that it did begin with Howard the Duck, who is, I might add it, is now canon.
Is in the MCU.
Is in the MCU, and it all began with him. So, earlier on when we were talking about some of the good things you can say about it, you mentioned the music as well, Dominique. What part of the music?
The songs that are by, I think Cherry Bomb is the band that does the music. I don't remember exactly, but I like some of the songs in it. They're bangers. I like 80s rock, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
no Top Gun, but you know.
You're right. It's not. It's not Top Gun, and far from it, I'd say. So, did you guys remember any specific parts of the score itself, and not the music necessarily, but the score?
I remember the dumb piece that plays over the plane chase at the end. It's just like the same little bit over and over, and it's really boring.
In the 25-minute plane chase.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. This movie
Not to
was
mention
entirely
the extra 15-minute truck drive.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
So, I did like at the very beginning, and even knowing that this movie is, now I know, considered the worst movie of the 80s, I was intrigued at the beginning because it kind of had this film noir feel to it. You kind of got this vibe that Howard the Duck was like maybe a private eye in Duck World, because it kind of had like this jazzy music playing, had the cigarette smoke, and so I remembered that. But then as soon as he gets sent to Earth, all that goes out the window, and we learned that he is a master of quack foo pretty right off the bat.
which is nothing compared to Shaq Fu. So
Which is nothing
get out of
compared
here,
to
Howard the
Shaq
Duck.
Fu.
I like the first few minutes, 10, 15 minutes after he got to Earth. Like it starts with Howard the Duck defending Leah Thompson's character from a bunch of thugs, and it could have been a really funny actiony noir detective movie. But then it just kind of went off the rails.
I agree. The moment they decided to make it a romance between this
gosh.
furry duck
Okay.
and
Are
Leah
we gonna
Thompson,
get to that?
I think this is a good
That-
time to get into that.
I think that's the real problem. I think
gosh.
if they had just eliminated that would have made the movie 100 times better. Not saying that it would make it good, just better.
It was the point where Leah Thompson's character tried to seduce Howard the Duck that the entire movie just went downhill hard.
Might I add, there's nothing on the Parents Guide that suggests there's anything wrong on the sexual nature of this movie.
Yeah.
The Parents Guide is wrong.
I bet, yeah, exactly. As soon as Leah Thompson reached inside Howard's shirt and started rubbing him,
Gosh.
um,
And his feathers
yes,
oh
yes,
my
yes,
goodness.
Oh, that ad at the very beginning of
Yeah.
the movie.
the movie, for looking extremely childish and kind of fun, has some really mature themes and really mature jokes in it that they're not hidden very well. They're in your face.
There's literal duck tits.
There's literal duck tits. Duck titties. Right there. It's there. I'm not even kidding. But don't go watch it. Don't.
And if you... No, we won't even go
We don't want to think about that. No. I'd also like to ask about something else that I was thinking about while watching, is the set design. Do you guys have anything to say about the set?
The
whatsoever?
set?
Any of the sets?
The set I kind of like. The rest of the design could use
just-
work.
Stuff, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I think it started really good. When you first start off, most of the sets are this punk rock type setting. There was a bar fight in a punk rock type bar, and then again when Leah Thompson tries to seduce Howard the Duck, that all went out the window. It just turned into this random 80s science lab
Or
place.
Fest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due. It probably took a while to come up with all those duck puns for Howard the Duck's apartment. So I'll give him that.
There were a lot of duck
There
puns
were a lot of
indeed.
duck puns.
So, I also liked kind of the 50s diner set that they have.
Oh yeah,
That I actually thought was pretty good until they blew it up.
I liked the waitress. She was cool.
I think she was the most realistic character in the
She was
movie.
the most realistic
She really
character.
was.
I agree with that. And going off that, and something else that David mentioned earlier, is the special effects for this movie. David, you mentioned that they weren't bad. Do you have any parts in mind, any specific moments that stood out to you, that the visual effects really kind of impressed you?
I mean, it's no Star Wars. Even for the 80s, it wasn't amazing. But for its time, it wasn't terrible. The one that stood out to me the most is the giant monster that infects the scientist at the end.
Yeah.
I think Howard the Duck finds this random super weapon laser that's able to take the monster out of the scientist without killing him. And then Howard the Duck goes and fights this giant, weird monster. And
he didn't die, unfortunately.
yeah, he didn't die. But the design of the monster was...
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
I'll agree.
For the 80s, it was...
I mean, there was a lot of practical effects, a lot of puppet work that went into it. And something that really did impress me the entire way through is Howard the Duck himself. Who I think there was a person in that costume.
Mm-hmm. And then someone else doing the voice.
And someone else doing the voice. But I was very impressed with how natural Howard the Duck seemed to move. As natural as an anthropomorphic duck.
Yeah.
And you're right that the monster at the end looked very real. I think, once again, it was a puppet of some kind, and they used film effects to make it bigger and whatnot. But it was very interesting how I compare a lot of 80s movies and 80s special effects to Ghostbusters, which is my favorite movie of all time, and I'd even go so far to say as there are a lot of effects in this movie that I think were even better than Ghostbusters.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you think of the end of Ghostbusters, and they have like that giant portal opening over New York City and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cheesy looking, but I don't know. Maybe it's blasphemy to give Howard the Duck this much credit. I should probably just stop where I'm going. But I agree that the special effects, I think, were the best part of the movie and were impressive for the 80s and don't hold up. But so my last question kind of about this is, if you guys were put in charge of rebooting Howard the Duck, directing your own Howard the Duck film. Yeah, I know. If you guys were making your own Howard the Duck film, what would you do?
Not make it.
Okay. Realistically, the big thing I would change is, instead of trying to make it a romance type feel, I try to make it more of like a family type feel. Like, because in the end, Howard the Duck doesn't want to end up going back to his planet because of his romantic relationship with Leah Thompson.
Relatable.
And
I feel that.
understandable on his part. But if I were to change it, instead of making it a romantic relationship, I would think I would have made it more of a family thing. Whereas, like, because everybody cares about each other so much, he stays, rather than having that whole awkward romance throughout the entire series. As best stated by the one guy in the bar, that's disgusting.
Yes, honestly. I like the idea of a noir film. That would be cool. Like the juxtaposition of this weird anthropomorphic duck doing like a dark noir film. That's cool. I'd watch that.
If I were to make a modern day Howard the Duck movie, I don't think... Well, first of all, I wouldn't make a modern day Howard the Duck movie. I think he would fit really well with the Guardians of the Galaxy as not just like a cameo, but like an actual decent size of or decent part of the movie, of the movie's plot, I mean. And I think he'd fit really well with them. He's got the same type of vibe, or he could have that same type of vibe.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll put him in the holiday special? I hope so.
I hope so.
I hope so.
I definitely like how Howard the Duck has kind of become this meme that James Gunn just decided to throw into Guardians of the Galaxy, included him in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and even made a cameo appearance at the end of Avengers Endgame. Spoilers.
Yeah, if you didn't know, he is there alongside fighting Thanos.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's there.
He's there. And I hope that this kind of running gag continues into James Gunn's future Guardians of the Galaxy movies, the holiday special he announced that he's doing, as well as what I hope to be called as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Ah, me too.
And so, do we want to see a future from Howard the Duck?
Yes. I would not say by the same right. I say Howard the Duck as a character, the idea of Howard the Duck is not bad. It's actually pretty freaking rad, in my opinion.
The movie is bad.
The movie gave it a horrible rap.
Yeah.
So kind of jumping off of this and moving away from Howard the Duck, kind of taking our
Thank
minds off
goodness.
this, we can take a breather.
Praise.
But,
Bless.
you know, as we know, Howard the Duck originated as a comic book. And there are a lot of really bizarre and strange comics out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys could choose any of these kind of more obscure, ridiculous comic book characters to introduce to the MCU or even the DC cinematic universe, who would you choose?
That is a good question. Oh man, I don't know. My obscure character knowledge is mostly in Star Wars. I don't know as many obscure Marvel characters, which is interesting. I'd want a origin movie for Bodega Bandit. There's one. Or Koala Commander.
Koala Commander.
Shout out to all my Spider-Gwen fans out there.
Squirrel Girl. Okay, legit.
Squirrel
I read some
Girl.
of the Squirrel Girl comics, and they're actually pretty freaking cool. I kind of like them.
Do you think,
Squirrel Girl's pretty OP.
David, do you have anyone?
I'm never really been big into the comics. Like, I love the
I
Marvel
see.
movies and Marvel characters, but I don't know very many non-mainstream characters. I know about, I think there's one character that goes along with Thor. I remember seeing one of the cartoons.
Beta Ray Bill?
Beta Ray Bill. I
Bro,
think
we
he'd
were
be
just talking
rad.
about him yesterday.
Yeah.
He'd be rad in a Marvel movie.
He'd be
I-
so rad.
You know, I'm hoping, and I believe that Taika Waititi is got it in him to introduce Beta Ray
Oh,
Bill
yeah.
in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
So, would you guys say that there's an audience out there who wants more obscure, less mainstream comic book films?
Definitely.
Do you think that?
Are we talking about profitable?
Yeah. So.
I don't know about profitable.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's an audience for it, but not like a big enough audience for them to make big main blockbuster movies about them.
See, but the thing is, a lot of the characters that they did use,
Yeah, because
Indie,
Guardians
big-
were hardly known at all.
They-
yeah,
True,
they
became
weren't.
huge.
they weren't a thing at all. Most of them, like a lot of these guys, didn't exist.
Yeah, like half of them weren't part of the Guardians until the movie came out, and then the comics reformatted themselves to fit the movie.
So, what do you think, Joseph? Would it take for them, if they were to make a Squirrel Girl movie, what would it take to actually introduce this character to the general public, make her likable, and make the movie profitable?
I don't know. The big thing with Squirrel Girl is just in her name. It makes it sound like it would be a children's movie, when I don't think that it should fit that kind of a feel. Like, it's kind of a childish idea, but I feel like it needs to be a little bit more on that.
Yeah, and see, like, that's the same thing with Howard, like, that juxtaposition of, like, this funny, weird, kind of lame, oh, can we get a Great Lakes Avengers movie? Oh, that would be dope. That's what I want, actually. Great Lakes Avengers movie.
And so, same question to you, Dominic. What would it take? What kind of style and what would it take to bring a Great Lakes Avengers movie into the mainstream?
I think it's the same thing, like, having that juxtaposition between these bizarre, lame characters and, like, a darker, more, like, brutal, not necessarily gritty, but brutal story.
An intense plot line.
Yeah, would work really well.
Like, a reason they need to be important.
It's like JLA is, like, full of dumb characters, and they get killed, like, brutally, like, all the time. It's just... or a Next Wave movie? Oh, I would kill for a Next Wave movie. Holy crap. All these things are, like, just coming on me. Next Wave, man. Next Wave.
I'd have to agree. I think there's definitely an audience out there for it, and I think Guardians of the Galaxy has proved that people aren't opposed to seeing new and obscure characters.
Especially when they're done right.
Especially especially when they're done right. And Howard the Duck is proof
wrong.
that what happens when it's done wrong. Exactly. So, you know, I hope to see more of these kind of obscure characters come to mainstream. And another big problem we're seeing in Hollywood right now, I think, is an oversaturation
It's Corona.
I mean, that
is an oversaturation of the comic book genre.
Mm.
Do you think introducing more of these obscure characters would kind of reduce that oversaturation of AAA, big budget, Hollywood blockbuster comic book films? Or do you think it would just make things worse?
I don't know.
I think one of the big fears of a lot of people is that Endgame and Infinity War was like the peak. And a lot of people don't think they can get above that, and I don't think they need to. That's the thing is a lot of people think that means they just should stop, but I don't think they need to get above that.
They don't.
And that's why I think a lot of these like more obscure characters, if they were brought in, and you like could see that there's more than just like right now we have the Avengers, and that's what everybody knows: the Avengers and maybe Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right.
the Avengers and Friends.
The Avengers and
Like-
Friends.
Essentially, everybody else is a non-existent.
No.
Right.
I would kill for a Next Wave movie. Oh my goodness.
So, in Disney and actually Warner Brothers is pushing a lot of shows right now. Recently, in the time of recording, Disney released a bunch of new shows that's going to be happening for both Marvel and Star Wars. Do you think that a Disney Plus show would be a better place to introduce some of these more obscure characters?
It definitely.
I think it really depends on the character. Like with a lot of them, yes, definitely. But then there are some that are deserving of a movie, honestly.
I think Disney Plus shows are a good middle ground between big blockbuster Marvel movies and avoiding an oversaturation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's we just watched the first 2 episodes of WandaVision today, and that thing is so bizarre, and I think that's where Marvel at least is gonna start going with a lot of their shows, is hitting this more swinging for the fences kind of stuff, which I am here for 100%. So.
Absolutely.
Next Wave TV show. Oh my
That would be.
goodness.
It would be so much fun. I think a lot of people could really get behind it and really find a connection with the characters. So I'm hoping that Marvel and DC also expand kind of their roster that they have going right now. I'm really excited to see what DC does, as they recently just confirmed that everything is canon.
Adam West
Batman is now canon officially. Fight me. But the Black Adam movie that's going to be coming out, they've already confirmed several kind of lesser known characters. One that I'm particularly interested in, of course, is Dr. Fate, who they've confirmed as a major part of Black Adam.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And so I'm really excited to see what these major companies come up with, and I hope they start bringing into more obscure and lesser known characters to kind of, I think, revitalize the superhero genre. So I think that's about it. Are there any other thoughts you guys want to put out about Howard the Duck?
Don't watch Howard the Duck.
Don't watch it.
We cannot overstate how much.
We should not overstate how much. You should not watch Howard the Duck.
Even if you are willing to go through the pain of watching Howard the Duck, do not subject your children to this movie by any means.
Please.
Just
haven't watched Back to the Future.
Or your enemies.
Wholesome family film about a mom wanting to bang his son. Wholesome.
Wholesome content.
And Leah Thompson.
A better performance by Leah Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Don't watch it. I own the movie now, and I wish I did. I own it digitally, so I can't even sell it or donate it. I just own it.
You shouldn't donate that movie. There's no need to donate it.
Just trying to hide it. So, we are just starting off this podcast, and we're trying to figure out what we're doing, how we want to do it, how long things should be, how short things should be. And if we should just stop.
Let us know
suck.
in the comments.
Let us know.
Tweet at hope_for_summer. That's my personal one. Tweet Next Wave on Disney Plus, baby.
Hashtag SaveTron Uprising.
Oh, yes. We should talk about that sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to have a whole thing on that.
And so, right now, like I said, we're really trying to figure out what it is that we want to make this podcast about, and we're just throwing ideas against the wall here. We like the idea,
and our heads.
We're throwing our heads against walls. We like talking about movies, and we were thinking next week we can talk about a video game that we've all been playing, Stardew Valley. Kind of give our thoughts on that, share some of our experiences, whether or not we'd recommend it or not. And I think we can all say that we would recommend it. But of course, we're just trying to figure things out, and so we appreciate any and all feedback, ideas coming from you guys. If you listened to this far, congratulations. We honestly didn't think you would. So
I think I would. I thought I'd have left the door by now.
I would have left. But we appreciate it, and we will catch you on the next one.
Wait, before you end this, I lost the game.
Oh.
You monster!
There we go. That's it. Our podcast is going. All right. Take care, everybody.